This is not a coincidence. This is not just another video scrolling across your screen. Archangel Michael commands immediate attention. 2 minutes decide whether you rise or lose everything. Skip this and darkness wins. Those words are not dramatic exaggeration. They are a divine interruption. And if you feel something stirring in your spirit right now, an urgency, a pull, a weight, you are not imagining it. Heaven is pressing pause on your routine. Heaven is stepping into your timeline. Because there are moments in life that carry unusual spiritual weight, and this is one of them. 2 minutes. That is all it takes. 2 minutes that will not look extraordinary on the outside, but in the unseen realm, they are being watched, measured, accorded. You may think that transformation requires months, years, preparation, perfect conditions. But heaven does not always operate on human clocks. Sometimes destiny hinges on a single decision. A response. A yes. Or a silence. And right now, you are standing inside one of those sacred intersections. Archangel Michael, heaven's warrior, does not command attention lightly. When there is a command, it means a battle is already in motion. It means movement has begun in the spiritual realm. It means lines are being drawn. And whether you realize it or not, you are connected to that movement. The phrase "decide whether you rise or lose everything" is not about material loss. It is about spiritual positioning. It is about alignment. It is about whether you step forward into the authority, protection, and elevation prepared for you, or whether hesitation opens the door for erosion, delay, and quiet defeat. Darkness does not always attack loudly. It rarely announces itself. Most of the time, it wins through distraction, through delay, through convincing you that what feels urgent is actually optional, that what feels important can be postponed, that what feels like a divine nudge is just emotion. And in that space of doubt, opportunities fade, assignments weaken, spiritual clarity dims. Not because you were overpowered, but because you were disengaged. Why is this so urgent? Because there are seasons when heaven accelerates decisions, when the spiritual atmosphere becomes charged, when the gap between obedience and consequence shortens. We are living in such a moment. Many have felt unusual pressure lately, confusion without clear cause, resistance in places that once flowed easily, sudden heaviness, strange distractions. These are not random emotional swings. They are signals that something is shifting. And when shifts happen, warriors are mobilized. Archangel Michael represents divine defense, authority, and enforcement of heaven's will. A command from him signals seriousness. It signals that delay carries weight. It signals that passivity is no longer safe. You may have sensed recently that something is demanding your attention, that you cannot remain neutral anymore. That a choice you have been postponing is circling back with greater intensity. This is why. 2 minutes decide whether you rise or lose everything. Rising means stepping into clarity. It means reclaiming spiritual ground. It means choosing courage over comfort. It means responding when called. Losing everything does not mean destruction overnight. It means slow fading. It means watching doors close quietly. It means watching momentum drain. It means realizing later that a moment passed, and it will not return in the same form. And here is the sobering truth. Skipping this moment strengthens darkness. Not because darkness is more powerful, but because unclaimed light leaves space. When you ignore a divine prompting, you do not stay neutral. You drift. And drifting in critical moments can redirect entire seasons of your life. But here is the powerful revelation hidden inside this warning. The fact that you are hearing this means you are not abandoned. It means you are being alerted. It means heaven still calls your name. It means you are considered worth interrupting. Darkness only fights what carries purpose, and the urgency around you right now is evidence that your rise matters. This is not about fear. It is about awareness. It is about awakening. It is about recognizing that some minutes are heavier than others. Some choices echo longer. Some responses unlock acceleration. You may have been waiting for a sign, for confirmation, for clarity. Is it? This message is the interruption you asked for without knowing how to ask. So breathe in this moment. Feel the weight of it. Do not rush past it. Do not dismiss it. Because what happens next depends on what you do with this awareness. 2 minutes. A decision. A shift. Heaven is watching, not to condemn you, but to partner with your response. Archangel Michael commands immediate attention. 2 minutes decide whether you rise or lose everything. Skip this and darkness wins. The command has gone forth. The moment is open. And this is only the beginning of what is about to be revealed. There is a war happening around you that most people will never see with their natural eyes. It does not make headlines. It does not announce itself with noise. But you feel it. You sense it in the sudden resistance, in the unexplained heaviness, in the tension that seems to rise without warning. Archangel Michael commands immediate attention. 2 minutes decide whether you rise or lose everything. Skip this and darkness wins is not just a statement. It is a response to this invisible conflict. The atmosphere has shifted. What used to feel simple now feels contested. What once flowed easily now meets friction. Conversations change tone. Plans stall. Motivation flickers. You may have blamed stress, routine, or circumstances. But what if there is more happening beneath the surface? What if this pressure is not random, but strategic? Because when someone carries purpose, resistance increases. When someone is close to elevation, opposition intensifies. Darkness studies patterns. It looks for moments of vulnerability. It waits for distraction. It does not need dramatic chaos to win. It only needs your attention diverted at the right time. It only needs you to scroll past a warning, to delay a decision, to silence a conviction. And slowly, subtly, ground is lost. This is why the command for immediate attention matters. When a commander calls for focus, it is because scattered awareness is dangerous. Archangel Michael stands in Scripture as a defender, a warrior who confronts spiritual forces directly. His presence in this message signals that the battle is not imaginary. It is organized. It is organ, and it is urgent. You may have noticed unusual dreams, heightened emotions, or a sense that something significant is approaching. Some of you have felt pulled to pray more but resisted the urge. Others have felt prompted to step away from certain influences but postponed the action. The tension you feel between action and hesitation is not small. It is the front line. Invisible war often looks like confusion. One moment you feel clear about your direction, and the next moment doubt clouds your mind. One day you feel strong, the next day you question everything. This instability is not weakness. It is pressure designed to disorient. Because if darkness can blur your vision, it can slow your movement. And if it can slow your movement, it can delay your rise. But here is the truth. Awareness breaks strategy. The moment you recognize that resistance has purpose, you stop internalizing it as personal failure. You begin to see it as opposition to destiny. And when you see clearly, you respond differently. Instead of retreating, you stand. Instead of drifting, you decide. This is why your engagement right now matters more than you realize. When you align yourself with light, when you openly declare your intention to rise, you shift spiritual momentum. Even something as simple as typing a declaration in the comments becomes an act of agreement. It signals that you are not passive. It signals that you are alert. If this message is speaking directly into your situation, do not keep it to yourself. Like this video so it reaches others who are standing at the same crossroads. Share it with someone who had been feeling the pressure but could not explain it. Subscribe to this channel if you are ready to stay spiritually alert and equipped. Comment your decision to rise. These actions are not about numbers. They are about amplifying light in a time when distraction is increasing. Every engagement pushes back against silence. Every share interrupts someone else's drift. The invisible war thrives in isolation. It grows when people think they are alone in their struggle. But you are not alone. Others are sensing the same tension, the same urgency. And when you unite in awareness, darkness loses one of its greatest advantages. Right now, you stand between two currents. One pulls you toward complacency. It whispers that this is just another message, another moment, another day. The other current pulls you toward clarity. It reminds you that something significant is unfolding, that your response carries weight, that 2 minutes can redirect a season. Archangel Michael's command is not about fear. It is about focus. It is about sharpening your awareness so you do not misinterpret resistance as randomness. It is about understanding that the pressure you feel may be proof that you are close to breakthrough. Because darkness does not mobilize against those who pose no threat. Ask yourself honestly, what decision have you been postponing? What action have you felt urged to take but delayed? What truth have you sensed but avoided confronting? These questions are not accidental. They are connected to the very reason this message found you. The invisible war is real, but so is your authority. So is heaven's backing, and so is the opportunity before you. The difference between rising and losing everything is not strength versus weakness. It is awareness versus distraction. It is engagement versus avoidance. It is decision versus delay. You have been alerted. The atmosphere hath been exposed. The battle lines are visible. And now the responsibility shifts to you. Will you remain passive or will you respond with clarity? The war may be invisible, but your decision will be unmistakable. There are moments in life that look ordinary on the surface but carry eternal consequences underneath. This is one of them. Archangel Michael commands immediate attention. 2 minutes decide whether you rise or lose everything. Skip this and darkness wins is not poetry. It is not symbolic exaggeration. It is a declaration that a window has opened, and that window will not remain open forever. 2 minutes. In human terms, that feels small, insignificant, easy to postpone. But heaven does not measure time the way we do. In Scripture, entire nations shifted because of one act of obedience. Destinies were sealed because someone responded immediately instead of hesitating. The difference between delay and decision has always separated those who rise from those who watch from a distance. You may be wondering how 2 minutes could possibly carry that kind of weight. But understand this. It is not the length of time that determines impact. It is the quality of the decision made within it. 2 minutes of surrender can break years of stagnation. 2 minutes of bold agreement with God can dismantle cycles that have followed you for a lifetime. 2 minutes of clarity can silence confusion that has clouded your mind for months. What makes this window dangerous is hesitation. Hesitation feels harmless. It tells you there will be another chance, another prompting, another warning. But sacred windows are not guaranteed to repeat in the same form. When Archangel Michael commands immediate attention, it signals that heaven is initiating movement. And when heaven moves, it expects response. Right now, you are being invited to decide, not casually, not emotionally, but intentionally. Will you align with the rise that has been prepared for you? Or will you allow distraction to slowly drain what was meant to elevate you? Losing everything does not always mean dramatic collapse. It can mean losing momentum, losing clarity, losing boldness, losing spiritual sensitivity. And often, those losses happen quietly. There are people who look back on their lives and remember a moment they ignored, a conviction they silenced, a calling they delayed, and years later, they realize that was the turning point. Not because God abandoned them, but because they stepped out of alignment during a critical window. This is why the urgency exists. This is why the command is strong. In these 2 minutes, something powerful happens. You confront your own passivity. You face the choice you have been circling. You acknowledge the nudge you have been feeling. You stop pretending that the pressure is random. And you decide to respond. Obedience is rarely convenient. It often interrupts comfort. It demands focus. It asks you to step forward without full visibility. But obedience activates acceleration. When you move in alignment, heaven moves with you. When you respond quickly, clarity increases, strength increases, protection increases. Delay, on the other hand, creates fog. And here is what makes this even more intense. Darkness is aware of timing. That is why distraction increases when breakthrough is close. That is why confusion rises when clarity is about to land. The enemy does not fear your intentions. It fears your decisive action. Because once you decide, momentum shifts. So what do you do in these 2 minutes? You quiet the noise. You reject the lies that tell you this is insignificant. You acknowledge that this message is not random. You make an internal declaration. I will not drift. I will not delay. I will not ignore what heaven is highlighting. This is your window of destiny. And destiny does not shout forever. It knocks. It calls. It commands attention. Then it waits for response. If you can feel the weight of this moment pressing on your spirit, do not brush it aside. There is a revelation still unfolding that will make this decision even clearer. What is about to be revealed next will shift how you see your current battle, and you will understand why this urgency could not wait. Before we move forward, seal this moment with intention. Type "I will rise" in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 314 is now activated over your decision. Let that number remind you that alignment brings order, and order brings acceleration. Your obedience in this moment is not only about you. It is about the souls connected to your rise. When you choose alignment, you become a light in someone else's darkness. This mission exists to awaken, to warn, to call God's people into clarity. And when you respond, you partner with that mission. Scripture declares, "Give, and it will be given to you, pressed down, shaken together, running over." Hear that as God speaking directly to you right now. As you sow into fertile spiritual ground, heaven responds with overflow. When you release seed, rivers begin to flow. I feel led to say this clearly. I am inviting you to act in faith right now. If this message has stirred your spirit, do not let the fire fade. Support this prophetic mission through super thanks. Become a member, or sow a seed through the PayPal link in the description or the PayPal QR code flashing on your screen. This is not a donation. It is a prophetic act. It is a declaration that you stand for light in a time of urgency. As you give, may oil of favor pour over your household. May doors open that resistance tried to block. May your obedience return to you as harvest. Do not hesitate. Move as you are led. Activate your seed and step into agreement with heaven's timing. There is a sobering side to this message that cannot be softened, because truth spoken gently is still truth. Archangel Michael commands immediate attention. 2 minutes decide whether you rise or lose everything. Skip this and darkness wins is not only about the glory of rising. It is also about understanding what is truly at stake if you do not respond. And what you stand to lose is far greater than comfort, convenience, or temporary peace. Loss in the spirit rarely begins with catastrophe. It begins with small compromises, a delay in prayer, a muted conviction, a postponed decision. At first, nothing dramatic happens. Life continues. The days move forward, but something subtle shifts inside. Sensitivity dull. Discernment weakens. The sharpness you once carried begins to blur, and you do not notice it immediately, because erosion is quiet. You stand to lose momentum. Momentum is a sacred force. When you are aligned with heaven, things begin to flow with divine rhythm. Opportunities align. Strength rises at the right time. Favor appears in unexpected places. But when hesitation enters, that rhythm falters. What once required little effort begins to demand struggle. What once felt clear becomes clouded. It is not that God withdrew. It is that alignment loosened. You also stand to lose opportunities that were time-sensitive. Not every door stays open indefinitely. Some doors are seasonal. They require courage in a specific window. When you ignore the prompting to act, the opportunity does not always disappear dramatically. It transfers. It shifts to someone else who was ready. Heaven's purposes move forward, but you may find yourself watching from a distance what you were once invited to carry. There are relationships connected to your obedience, assignments tied to your yes, influence attached to your rise. When you delay, you are not only affecting yourself, you are affecting those who were meant to be impacted through you. Darkness understands this. That is why it focuses on distraction rather than destruction. If it can delay you long enough, it can redirect influence. You stand to lose confidence in your own spiritual hearing. Every time you ignore a clear prompting, doubt grows louder the next time. You begin to question whether you are truly discerning correctly. And slowly, the boldness that once defined you begins to shrink. The enemy does not need to overpower you if it can convince you that you are uncertain. Another loss is clarity of purpose. Purpose thrives in obedience. When you respond quickly, direction sharpens. But when you delay repeatedly, confusion multiplies. You begin chasing distractions. You begin entertaining options that were never meant for you. And eventually, exhaustion sets in, not because you are incapable, but because you are misaligned. There is also the loss of peace. Not surface peace, but deep, rooted assurance. When you know you have obeyed, even in difficult moments, there is strength that anchors you. But when you know you ignored a divine nudge, rest becomes fragile. You may smile outwardly, but internally there is tension. A quiet awareness that something was left undone. And then there is the most dangerous loss of all, spiritual urgency. When urgency fades, complacency grows. You become comfortable with delay. You normalize passivity. You convince yourself that tomorrow will always offer another chance. But spiritual history shows that critical moments do not endlessly repeat. Some seasons are decisive. This is why the warning carries weight. It is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to waken you. Because once you see what is truly at stake, indifference becomes impossible. You realize that 2 minutes are not about pressure. They are about preservation. Preservation of calling. Preservation of authority. Preservation of alignment. Darkness wins not by stealing everything overnight, but by slowly draining what was meant to flourish. It wins by keeping you distracted long enough to miss the pivot. It wins by convincing you that your response does not matter. But your response matters more than you understand. Yet even in this warning, there is hope. The fact that you are hearing this means loss is not inevitable. It means awareness has arrived before erosion became permanent. It means heaven intervened before drift became direction. You are not being informed after the fact. You are being alerted in real time. Right now, you have the power to prevent the losses we just described. You have the authority to reclaim momentum. You have the clarity to step back into alignment. Nothing has been finalized. Nothing has been sealed against you. The window is still open. The call is still active. But do not mistake mercy for endless delay. Urgency exists because timing matters. The more you understand what is at stake, the more intentional your response must become. This is not about panic. It is about precision. It is about recognizing that your destiny deserves decisive action. You stand at a threshold. On one side is erosion masked as comfort. On the other side is elevation that requires courage. What you stand to lose is real, but so is what you stand to gain. And the difference between the two will be determined not by circumstances, but by your willingness to respond when called. If Part 4 revealed what is at stake, then Part 5 reveals what is waiting. Because Archangel Michael commands immediate attention, 2 minutes decide whether you rise or lose everything. Skip this and darkness wins is not centered on loss. It is centered on elevation. The warning exists because the rise is real. And what awaits the obedient is far greater than what fear tries to protect you from. Rising in the kingdom of God does not always mean public recognition. It does not always look like applause or visible promotion. Sometimes the greatest rise happens in the unseen realm first. Authority increases. Discernment sharpens. Confidence solidifies. Peace deepens. And from that internal elevation, external doors begin to open. When you respond immediately to divine instruction, something shifts in your spiritual posture. You move from reactive to aligned. You move from hesitant to decisive. And heaven responds to alignment. Obedience activates backing. It is as if unseen forces begin arranging circumstances in your favor because you demonstrated readiness. The rise that awaits you is not accidental. It has been prepared. There are assignments with your name on them. There are conversations that will require your clarity. There are spaces that will require your presence. But those spaces can only be occupied by someone who chose courage when hesitation was easier. One of the first signs of rising is restored clarity. The fog that once surrounded your decisions begins to lift. You start seeing connections you missed before. You recognize distractions more quickly. You feel steadier. This clarity is not random. It is the reward of alignment. When you say yes to God's prompting, confusion loses its grip. Another dimension of rising is divine acceleration. Things that once felt delayed begin to move. Opportunities align faster. Answers come quicker. Strength feels renewed. It may not happen instantly in the natural, but internally you sense momentum returning. That momentum is evidence that you step back into rhythm with heaven's timing. Rising also brings protection. When you align yourself under divine authority, you step into divine covering. This does not mean challenges disappear. It means you are guarded within them. Attacks that once shook you now feel manageable. Fear that once overwhelmed you now loses intensity. The difference is not your own strength. It is the covering that surrounds obedience. Promotion follows testing. Many of you have been in a season of quiet refining. You have faced resistance, doubt, and pressure, and you wondered if you were being forgotten. But refinement always precedes elevation. The 2-minute decision is not about beginning your journey. It is about stepping into the next level of it. There are doors that no human can open for you. There are platforms that cannot be forced. There are breakthroughs that cannot be manipulated. They respond only to alignment. And when alignment happens, doors open without strain. Favor appears without striving. What once felt impossible begins to feel natural. The rise that awaits you also impacts others. When you step into clarity, you become a source of stability for those around you. When you walk in courage, others find theirs. Your obedience creates ripple effects. Family members shift. Friends gain strength. Even strangers encounter light through your presence. Rising is never isolated. And here is something powerful. Rising restores joy. Not shallow excitement, but deep joy rooted in purpose. When you know you responded correctly, there is satisfaction that circumstances cannot steal. There is peace in knowing you did not shrink back, that you did not allow fear to dictate your direction. You may feel unqualified for the rise you sense approaching. You may think others are more prepared, more talented, more ready. But heaven does not promote based on comparison. It promotes based on obedience. Your willingness to respond in 2 minutes speaks louder than years of passive preparation. The enemy fears your rise because it disrupts its strategy. When you move into alignment, cycles break, patterns shift, influence extends, darkness loses territory. That is why resistance intensified before this moment. That is why distraction increased. Because your elevation carries impact. Imagine looking back at this day and recognizing it as the pivot. The moment you stopped drifting. The moment you chose decisiveness. The moment it returned. That is what is possible right now. Not because of emotion. Not because of hype. But because obedience carries power. You were not warned only to avoid loss. You were warned because promotion is near. The command for immediate attention was issued because readiness is required. And readiness is demonstrated through response. The rise that awaits you is not theoretical. It is prepared. It is positioned. It is closer than you think. But it is accessed through decision, not desire. Through action, not intention. Through courage, not comfort. 2 minutes. That is all it takes to shift posture. To reclaim authority. To align with acceleration. To step into protection. To unlock clarity. To activate momentum. The question is no longer whether rising is possible. It is whether you will respond in time to claim it. If the rise is real and the stakes are high, then you must understand the method being used against you. Archangel Michael commands immediate attention. 2 minutes decide whether you rise or lose everything. Skip this and darkness wins exposes not only urgency, but strategy. And the primary strategy is not fear. It is not force. It is distraction. Distraction is subtle. It does not look dangerous. It feels harmless, even reasonable. It comes dressed as busyness, as entertainment, as emotional overwhelm, as endless scrolling, as minor conflicts that steal major focus. It convinces you that you are occupied, when in reality you are being diverted. And diversion at the wrong time can cost destiny. The enemy understands something powerful. If it cannot destroy you, it will dilute you. If it cannot overpower you, it will preoccupy you. Because a distracted believer is an ineffective one. A distracted mind cannot discern clearly. A distracted spirit cannot respond quickly. And when response is delayed, momentum weakens. Think about the moments when you felt closest to breakthrough. Often, those moments were surrounded by unusual interruptions, unexpected arguments, sudden fatigue, random obligations, emotional heaviness that seemed disproportionate. These were not coincidences. They were attempts to shift your attention away from the critical decision in front of you. Distraction works because it rarely feels urgent. It tells you that you can pray later, decide later, act later. It whispers that one more delay will not matter. But when heaven releases a 2-minute window, later becomes dangerous. Later can become never. One of the most common forms of distraction is emotional noise. When your emotions are stirred without clarity, you become reactive. You spend energy processing feelings instead of moving in faith. The enemy will amplify insecurity, comparison, frustration, or disappointment, not to break you, but to blur you. Because blurred vision leads to missed opportunities. Another form of distraction is false urgency. Tasks that feel pressing but carry no eternal weight. Messages that demand attention but add no value. Situations that appear dramatic but resolve into nothing. These false alarms train your nervous system to stay busy while your spirit remains stagnant. And while you are managing noise, the true moment quietly passes. Procrastination is another silent thief. It disguises itself as preparation. It convinces you that you need more clarity before acting, more confirmation, more reassurance. But often, the clarity you seek comes after obedience, not before. The longer you wait, the heavier the decision feels. And eventually, you may convince yourself it was never necessary. There is also the distraction of comfort. Comfort tells you to stay where things are predictable, to avoid risk, to avoid stepping into unfamiliar territory. But growth rarely happens in comfort. Rising requires movement, and movement feels uncomfortable before it feels empowering. You must also recognize digital distraction, endless information, constant updates, a flood of opinions. Your attention has become a battlefield. Every notification competes with divine instruction. Every scroll consumes seconds that could hold spiritual alignment. It is not that technology is evil. It is that unmanaged attention is vulnerable. The reason Archangel Michael commands immediate attention is because focus is a weapon. When you fix your attention on what heaven is saying, you weaken distraction's grip. When you consciously choose clarity over noise, you reclaim authority. The command itself is an interruption to interruption. Breaking distraction requires intentional boundaries. It requires moments of silence. It requires choosing prayer over panic. It requires stepping away from environments that cloud your thinking. It requires honesty about what has been stealing your time and energy. You cannot rise if your attention is scattered. You cannot step into acceleration if your focus is divided. The enemy does not need to remove your calling. It only needs to redirect your gaze long enough for the window to close. But here is the empowering truth. Distraction loses power the moment you recognize it. When you identify the tactic, you stop personalizing the pressure. You stop believing that your sudden lack of motivation is permanent. You understand that it is targeted interference. Right now, you have the opportunity to reclaim your focus. is silence unnecessary noise, to confront procrastination, to reject emotional exaggeration, to declare that your attention belongs to God, not chaos. This is not about perfection. It is about priority. What you prioritize grows stronger. What you neglect weakens. If you prioritize distraction, confusion grows. If you prioritize alignment, clarity grows. The 2-minute decision requires presence, full awareness, undivided attention. And that is exactly what distraction tries to steal. So ask yourself honestly, what has been pulling your focus lately? What has consumed your thoughts without producing growth? What has kept you busy but not aligned? Identifying these patterns is the first step to dismantling them. The enemy's strategy is distraction because it knows your rise is powerful. It knows your obedience carries influence. It knows your focus can shift atmospheres. And it fears what happens when you become fully aware. The command has been issued. Immediate attention is required. Not tomorrow. Not after everything settles. Now. Because when you guard your focus, you guard your future. To understand the urgency of this message, you must understand the authority behind it. Archangel Michael commands immediate attention. 2 minutes decide whether you rise or lose everything. Skip this and darkness wins carries weight because of who is issuing the command. Archangel Michael is not a symbolic figure of comfort. He is heaven's warrior. His presence signals conflict, protection, and enforcement of divine order. Throughout biblical history, Michael appears in moments of spiritual confrontation. He is associated with defense, with standing guard over God's purposes, with contending against forces that oppose divine plans. When his name is invoked in connection with urgency, it means that something significant is unfolding in the unseen realm. Authority in battle matters. Not every voice carries the same weight. Not every warning carries the same urgency. When a commander speaks during war, soldiers do not debate whether the threat is real. They respond because they understand rank. They understand timing. They understand that hesitation on the battlefield can cost territory. Right now, this message is not gentle suggestion. It is a command for awareness. And that command reflects spiritual authority. Michael's role represents the enforcement of God's will when resistance rises. It represents the defense of those aligned with heaven. It represents the assurance that you are not fighting alone. Many people misunderstand spiritual warfare. They imagine dramatic scenes, visible chaos, overwhelming darkness. But often, warfare looks like mental pressure. It looks like sudden discouragement. It looks like intensified temptation to give up. It looks like unusual opposition at strategic moments. And in those moments, authority is required. Michael's authority symbolizes structured resistance against chaos. It means there is order in heaven's response. It means your battles are not random. When the enemy mobilizes distraction or fear, heaven does not remain passive. There is movement in the spiritual realm that you cannot see but can sense. The image often associated with Michael is that of a sword. The sword represents discernment, truth, and decisive action. A sword is not decorative. It is functional. It divides what is true from what is false. It cuts through deception. It enforces boundaries. When urgency is declared, it is like a sword cutting through confusion, demanding clarity. If you have felt unusual spiritual tension recently, consider that it may be because your life carries weight. The enemy does not deploy resistance against emptiness. It reacts to purpose. And when purpose is near activation, opposition intensifies. That is not a sign of defeat. It is often a sign of proximity to breakthrough. Michael's authority also represents protection. There are battles you never saw because they were intercepted. There are attacks that never reached you because they were blocked. There are plans formed against you that dissolved before manifesting. Protection is often invisible, but it is real. However, protection does not eliminate responsibility. Authority invites alignment. When a commander gives instruction, those under protection must cooperate. You cannot ignore commands and expect strategic coverage to function fully. Immediate attention is part of alignment with protection. There is also something deeply empowering about understanding that heaven responds to conflict with structure, not panic. Michael's authority shows that spiritual warfare is not chaotic on God's side. It is organized. It is measured. It is intentional. And that means your situation is not out of control. You may feel small in the face of pressure. You may feel uncertain about your strength. But authority is not dependent on your feelings. It is anchored in divine order. When you align yourself with God's instruction, you step under established authority, and authority changes outcomes. Standing firm is part of this message. Not standing in arrogance, but standing in awareness. Standing in agreement with what heaven has declared. Standing against distraction. Standing against delay. Standing against the lie that this moment is insignificant. Michael's presence in this narrative is not about fear of darkness. It is about confidence in divine enforcement. Darkness does not win because it is stronger. It wins only where light is absent or ignored. When light is acknowledged and embraced, darkness retreats. Right now, the call is to stand firm in your decision. To recognize that urgency is not intimidation. It is preparation. To understand that authority has spoken not to frighten you, but to position you. You are not being left to navigate this alone. You are not expected to generate strength from emptiness. You are being invited to align with a structure already in place, a defense already active, a command already issued. Authority in battle means the outcome is not uncertain. It means the resources of heaven exceed the resistance you face, but those resources are accessed through obedience and awareness. The question is not whether authority exists. It does. The question is whether you will respond to it. Whether you will treat this moment with the seriousness it carries. Whether you will stand in alignment with the command that has gone forth. Because when authority speaks and obedience follows, victory is not accidental. It is inevitable. There comes a moment in every spiritual battle when information is no longer enough. Awareness has been given. The stakes have been revealed. The strategy of distraction has been exposed. Authority has spoken. And now only one thing remains: decision. Archangel Michael commands immediate attention. 2 minutes. Decide whether you rise or lose everything. Skip this and darkness wins has brought you to a threshold. This is the turning point. A turning point does not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels quiet, internal, almost invisible. But heaven records it. The moment you shift from hesitation to commitment, something irreversible happens in the spirit. Lines are drawn. Allegiances are confirmed. Momentum begins to move in a new direction. Right now, you are not lacking information. You are standing in the space of choice. Will you remain passive, hoping things improve on their own? Or will you step forward intentionally and declare that you will rise? The difference between those two responses may appear small externally, but spiritually it is massive. A decision is also a decision. Silence also communicates. Delay also declares agreement with stagnation. And this is why the urgency remains. Darkness does not require your active participation to win. It only requires your inaction. But heaven responds powerfully to even the smallest act of decisive faith. When you decide, fear begins to lose authority over you. Fear feeds on uncertainty. It thrives when you are wavering. But once you settle your heart and say, I choose alignment, fear has less room to operate. Decision stabilizes you. It anchors your spirit. It narrows your focus. This moment is a dividing line between who you were and who you are becoming. On one side is the version of you that hesitated, second-guessed, and drifted. On the other side is the version that stands firm, responds quickly, and trusts divine timing. You cannot inhabit both. You must choose which version you will empower. Heaven is not waiting to punish you. Heaven is waiting to partner with you. But partnership requires agreement, and agreement requires a decision. When you decide, you signal readiness. You demonstrate maturity. You show that you understand the weight of the moment. There are seasons when God carries you gently through confusion, and there are seasons when He calls you into decisive leadership over your own obedience. This is one of those seasons. You are being asked to rise above emotional fluctuations, above distractions, above comfort, and make a clear declaration. Some of you have been circling the same mountain for months, facing the same hesitation, wrestling with the same internal debate. This is your turning point, not because circumstances changed, but because you are choosing to change your posture within them. Deciding now does not mean you have every detail figured out. It means you trust enough to take the next step. It means you stop waiting for perfect clarity before acting. It means you understand that clarity often follows commitment. There is a powerful shift that happens the moment you say yes with conviction. The atmosphere around you begins to adjust. Resistance that once felt immovable begins to weaken. Ideas begin to flow. Strength begins to return. You may not see everything instantly, but you sense alignment locking into place. Do not underestimate the power of a present tense decision. On tomorrow, not when things calm down. Now, in this exact moment. The longer you delay, the louder distraction becomes. But when you move immediately, distraction loses its grip. And hear this clearly, what you are deciding about is not small. It is connected to influence, to purpose, to generational impact. The enemy would not work so hard to delay you if your obedience did not matter. The pressure you felt was evidence of importance. So pause for a breath right now. Let the noise settle, and answer honestly within yourself. Will I rise? Will I respond? Will I align with what heaven is urging? Type I decide now in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 528 is now activated over your turning point. Let that number remind you that grace empowers decisive action. And as you stand in this sacred decision, understand something deeper. What is about to unfold next will reveal the practical steps that solidify this choice. You will see how your decision translates into movement, and how movement unlocks acceleration. You will be glad you positioned your heart before what comes next. When you choose to decide now, you are not only shifting your own life, you are strengthening a mission that calls others to their turning point as well. This channel exists to awaken, to warn, to mobilize light in critical moments like this. And when you respond with boldness, you become part of that awakening. The word declares that when you sow beside all waters, you will reap in due season. Hear that as God speaking directly into your obedience. As you release seed into fertile ground, streams begin to flow where there was drought. Your giving becomes oil that keeps the lamp burning for others who are standing at their own crossroads. I sense this clearly. I am inviting you to act in faith right now. If this message has ignited something within you, seal it with action. Support this mission through Super Thanks. Step into membership, or so through the PayPal link in the description or the PayPal QR code on your screen. This is not a casual contribution. It is a prophetic alignment with urgency. As you give, may open heavens respond over your household. May acceleration meet your obedience. May every seed return as harvest in unexpected ways. Do not wait for later. Move as you are stirred. Activate your giving and let your action echo your decision. You have reached the place where decision must become action. Archangel Michael commands immediate attention. 2 minutes. Decide whether you rise or lose everything. Skip this and darkness wins is no longer only a warning or a revelation. It is now an instruction. You have decided. But how do you rise in these 2 minutes? What does rising actually look like in real time? First, you rise by becoming still. That may sound contradictory, but stillness silences confusion. In 2 focused minutes, step away from noise. Close your eyes if you can. Take a slow breath. Rising begins internally before it manifests externally. When you quiet your surroundings, you create space to hear clearly. Distraction loses power in silence. Second, you rise by speaking. Words carry authority. Whispered doubt weakens you, but declared truth strengthens you. In these 2 minutes, say out loud, I choose alignment with God's will. I reject delay. I reject fear. I rise into what is prepared for me. There is something powerful about hearing your own voice come into agreement with heaven. It shifts your posture from passive observer to active participant. Third, you rise by surrendering what has been holding you back. Identify the hesitation. Is it fear of failure? Fear of criticism? Comfort in familiarity? Name it, and then release it. You do not need a dramatic ceremony. A sincere internal surrender is enough. Say, God, I release this to you. Surrender creates space for acceleration. Fourth, you rise by taking one immediate step. It does not have to be large. Send the message you have been delaying. Begin the task you have been avoiding. Remove the distraction that has been draining you. Make the phone call. Start the prayer routine. Action breaks stagnation. Even a small step signals movement in the spirit. Fifth, you rise by renouncing agreement with negativity. Many of you have unknowingly partnered with discouraging thoughts. Thoughts that say you are too late, too unqualified, too inconsistent. In these 2 minutes, cancel those agreements. Say, that thought does not define me. Replace it with truth. Replace it with faith. Replace it with expectation. Sixth, you rise by remembering who stands with you. You are not acting alone. Authority backs obedience. Protection covers alignment. When you move, heaven moves. That awareness strengthens your courage. You are not stepping into uncertainty unsupported. You are stepping into divine partnership. These 2 minutes are not symbolic. They are practical. They are intentional. They are focused. And if you treat them seriously, you will feel the shift. It may be subtle at first. The sense of calm replacing anxiety. A sense of clarity replacing confusion. But that subtle shift marks the beginning of momentum. Let this also be a moment of accountability. If this message has guided you into clarity, do not keep it hidden. Comment your declaration. Write what you are committing to change. Speak your decision publicly. When you declare it, you solidify it. And when you see others declaring alongside you, strength multiplies. Like this video as a sign of agreement with your own rise. Share it with someone who needs these 2 minutes of awakening. Subscribe if you are ready to stay aligned and alert in seasons of urgency. These actions are not routine engagement. They are part of building a community that refuses to drift. Every share pushes light further. Every comment strengthens resolve. Every subscription reinforces your commitment to growth. Now, take a breath again. You have been warned. You have been informed. You have been called to decide. And now you have been given steps. The only thing left is execution. Do not underestimate what can happen when intention meets action. Many people feel inspired but never move. You are not called to be inspired only. You are called to be activated. Activation is what separates potential from fulfillment. As you complete these 2 minutes, do not rush back into noise. Carry the posture with you. Let your day reflect the decision you made. Guard your focus. Protect your clarity. Follow through on the step you identified. Rising is not a one-time emotional moment. It is sustained alignment. And understand this. What you just did may appear small in the natural, but spiritually it echoes. The enemy notices when you shift from hesitation to movement. The atmosphere adjusts when you move with intention. You have interrupted distraction. You have chosen alignment. You have stepped into acceleration. Hold on to this awareness, because what comes next will reveal the consequences for those who ignore such moments. You have chosen to rise. But the contrast will deepen your understanding of why this decision mattered so much. There is a reason this message has carried such intensity. Archangel Michael commands immediate attention. 2 minutes decide whether you rise or lose everything. Skip this and darkness wins was never meant to be casual. You have already seen what rising looks like. You have already stepped into decision. But now you must fully understand the contrast. What truly happens when someone ignores a call like this? Ignoring divine urgency does not usually result in immediate collapse. That is what makes it deceptive. Life continues. Routines remain intact. Responsibilities are still handled. From the outside, nothing appears broken. But internally, something begins to dim. The first consequence is spiritual dullness. When a person repeatedly ignores conviction, their sensitivity decreases. What once felt urgent begins to feel optional. What once stirred emotion begins to feel distant. It is not that God stops speaking. It is that the heart becomes less responsive. Over time, this dullness makes it harder to recognize future turning points. Another consequence is gradual misalignment. Misalignment is subtle. It does not announce itself loudly. It shows up as small compromises, adjustments in priorities, shifts in focus that seem harmless at first. But over weeks and months, these small deviations create a significant distance from original purpose. You may still believe you are on track, but your direction has shifted. There is also the loss of divine timing. Timing is sacred. Some blessings are not only about readiness but about season. When you ignore a moment designed for movement, you may find yourself waiting longer than necessary for what was once within reach. Not because God is withholding, but because alignment was delayed. Confidence also erodes when calls are ignored. Deep inside, you know when you were prompted to act. And when you choose not to, a quiet awareness lingers. That awareness can slowly transform into self-doubt. You begin questioning your discipline, your courage, your spiritual maturity. This internal conflict drains energy and weakens resolve. Relationships may also be affected. When you are misaligned, your responses shift. You become more irritable, more distracted, less present. The people, connected to your clarity, feel the impact of your confusion. The ripple effect of ignoring divine instruction extends further than you might expect. Another consequence is increased vulnerability to distraction. When you ignore one moment of urgency, it becomes easier to ignore the next. Patterns form. Procrastination becomes habit. Comfort becomes default. And before you realize it, you are no longer wrestling with a single decision. You are living in a cycle of avoidance. There is also the transfer of opportunity. This is difficult but true. God's purposes will move forward. If one person declines alignment, another will step into it. That does not mean you are abandoned. It means that destiny continues. Watching someone else walk in what you once felt called to can create regret that is heavier than initial obedience would have been. Ignoring the call also strengthens darkness, not because darkness gains ultimate power, but because it gains temporary ground. When light withdraws, even slightly, shadows expand. When conviction is silenced, confusion grows louder. The battlefield shifts subtly in favor of distraction. Yet even here, mercy remains. Consequences are not meant to condemn but to awaken. The purpose of understanding these outcomes is not to instill fear, but to deepen awareness. You are being shown the full picture so that your decision remains firm. You have already chosen to rise, but understanding the alternative strengthens your commitment. It reminds you why urgency mattered. It clarifies why immediate attention was required. It reinforces that what seemed intense was actually protective. Imagine looking back months from now. In one scenario, you responded, aligned, and experienced growth. In the other, you delayed, drifted, and struggled to regain clarity. The difference between those two futures begins in moments like this. The tragedy of ignored calls is not dramatic failure. It is quiet settling. Settling for less than what was prepared. Settling for comfort over courage. Settling for routine over purpose. And settling slowly numbs desire for more. But hear this clearly. It is not too late for anyone who is still listening. The very fact that you are here means awareness has not faded. You are not reading this after total collapse. You are reading this while the window remains open. The consequence of ignoring this call would have been gradual erosion. But you have interrupted that process. You have chosen engagement over indifference. You have stepped into awareness instead of drifting. Let this understanding anchor you. When distraction attempts to return, remember what it leads to. When comfort tempts you to postpone growth, remember the cost. When doubt whispers that urgency was exaggerated, remember the clarity you felt in these moments. Consequences are real, but so is redemption. And because you responded, your story is shifting toward elevation rather than erosion. The warning was necessary. The contrast was important. And now, as we move toward the final stretch of this message, you will see the assurance reserved for those who remained alert. There is a difference between those who hear and those who respond. Archangel Michael commands immediate attention. 2 minutes decide whether you rise or lose everything. Skip this and darkness wins was never only about warning you away from loss. It was about guiding you toward victory. And victory is not random. It is reserved for the alert. To be alert means you refuse to drift. It means you recognized urgency and did not mock it. It means when distraction tried to blur your focus, you sharpened it instead. It means when hesitation whispered, you answered with decision. That posture, alert, aware, aligned, positions you for outcomes others may not understand. Victory for the alert does not always begin with celebration. It often begins with stability. A deep, steady peace that settles in your spirit. While others feel shaken by shifting circumstances, you remain anchored. That anchoring is evidence of alignment. It is proof that you responded when called. Here is also a covering that rests over the alert. Protection becomes more noticeable, not because challenges disappear, but because they no longer overwhelm. You begin to recognize how many attacks were intercepted before they reached you. You sense that what could have destabilized you lost its power. That is not coincidence. That is covering activated by obedience. Favor is another mark of victory. Doors begin to open in unexpected ways. Conversations shift in your favor. Resources appear at the right time. What once required exhausting effort begins to flow more naturally. Favor does not mean ease in every area. It means divine cooperation meeting your commitment. Clarity deepens for the alert. Decisions that once felt complicated now feel straightforward. You see patterns more quickly. You discern motives more accurately. Confusion that once clouded your judgment begins to dissolve. This clarity becomes a shield. It prevents unnecessary detours. It keeps you aligned with purpose. Strength also increases. Not just physical energy, but inner resilience. When pressure comes, you do not crumble as before. You respond with calm determination. That strength grows from knowing you did not ignore the moment that mattered. You carry confidence rooted in obedience. Another dimension of victory is influence. When you are alert, your life becomes a testimony. Others notice the steadiness in you. They see the growth. They sense the peace. And without you striving for attention, your example begins to inspire them. Victory spreads quietly through presence. There is also restoration reserved for the alert. Areas that felt drained begin to refill. Opportunities that seemed lost return in new forms. Relationships strained by distraction begin to heal as your focus sharpens. Restoration is not always instant, but it is tangible. The alert also experiences acceleration. What once moved slowly begins to gain pace. Progress becomes visible. Goals that felt distant move closer. You sense that you are no longer stuck in repetition. That forward motion is confirmation that alignment unlocked momentum. Most importantly, victory includes intimacy with God. When you respond to urgency, you deepen trust. You prove willing to move without full visibility. That trust builds connection. Prayer feels more alive. Worship feels more authentic. Your awareness of God's presence intensifies. Do not mistake this victory as personal achievement alone. It is partnership. Heaven responds to alert hearts. When Archangel Michael commands attention and you answer, you align yourself with divine order. That alignment carries benefits far beyond what you can calculate. There will still be battles. Alertness does not eliminate conflict, but conflict looks different when you are prepared. You no longer feel surprised by resistance. You recognize it as confirmation of purpose. And instead of shrinking back, you stand firm. Imagine the contrast between someone who ignored this moment and someone who embraced it. One drifts into confusion. The other walks in clarity. One questions timing. The other moves in momentum. One feels isolated. The other feels cluttered. That is the power of alertness. Victory is not loud arrogance. It is quiet assurance. It is the calm confidence that comes from knowing you responded correctly. It is the stability that keeps you steady while others waver. It is the forward motion that carries you into prepared spaces. You were not warned for nothing. You were called into awareness because something significant rests ahead. And because you chose alertness over apathy, you are positioned to step into what has been prepared. Hold on to this posture. Guard it. Protect it. Do not let future distractions erode what you have built in these moments. Victory is not a one-time event. It is sustained through continued awareness. The final part of this message will seal everything that has been spoken. It will bring assurance, blessing, and confirmation that your decision to rise was not only wise, it was divinely timed. You have walked through the warning. You have faced the urgency. You have made the decision. And now we arrive at the sealing of this message. Archangel Michael commands immediate attention. 2 minutes decide whether you rise or lose everything. Skip this and darkness wins was never meant to leave you in tension. It was meant to awaken you, line you, and then assure you. The final command is simple: remain aligned. You answered the call. You chose to rise. You refused to drift. And because of that, you are not standing in uncertainty. You are standing in divine timing. The urgency that once felt intense now transforms into confirmation. You responded when heaven called your name. Understand this deeply. You were not here by accident. Out of countless distractions, countless voices, countless moments, this message found you. That alone is evidence of intentional grace. God does not command attention without purpose. He does not send warning without covering. He does not stir urgency without preparing provision. The darkness that was warned about is real, but it is not ultimate. Light hath greater authority. And when you aligned yourself with light, you positioned yourself on the winning side of the battle. Darkness only advances where light is absent. But you chose presence. You chose awareness. You chose obedience. Now assurance replaces urgency. There is a covering over your life that you cannot always see, but you can trust. There is protection assigned to your obedience. There is acceleration connected to your decision. What once felt delayed will begin to align. What once felt confusing will begin to clarify. What once felt heavy will begin to lift. Do not return to fear after choosing faith. Do not second-guess the decision you made in clarity. The enemy may attempt to whisper that nothing changed, but something did change. You changed. Your posture shifted. Your awareness sharpened. And when posture changes, outcomes follow. You may not see fireworks immediately. You may not hear dramatic announcements. But in the unseen realm, movement has already begun. Chains you did not see have weakened. Obstacles you did not understand have shifted. Protection you did not request has activated. Remain steady now. Guard what you gain. Protect your focus. Continue responding quickly when prompted. This is how victory is sustained, not through one emotional moment, but through consistent alignment. And hear this promise in your spirit. You will not lose everything. Not because loss was impossible, but because you chose differently. You stepped into the narrow window. You answered the command. You refused to let darkness win through your silence. That matters more than you know. As we close, seal this journey with intention. Type "light wins" in the comments if this message confirmed your spirit. Blessing code 909 is now activated over your alignment. Let it be a reminder that divine order surrounds you. And now, as this message settles into your heart, understand that what you experienced here is part of a greater mission. This channel is more than content. It is a trumpet of awakening in critical moments. When you support this work, you are not simply giving to a platform. You are sowing into souls who are standing at their own 2-minute turning points. The word declares that those who sow generously will reap generously. Hear that as God speaking directly to you. As you release seed into this mission, rivers of impact flow beyond what you can see. Your giving becomes oil in the lamp, keeping the light burning for someone who might otherwise drift into darkness. I am inviting you now to act boldly. If this message stirred you, seal it with prophetic action. Give through super thanks. Step into membership. Sow through the PayPal link in the description or the PayPal QR code on your screen. Do not treat this as a casual donation. Treat it as alignment with heaven's urgency. As you give, may doors open over your household. May favor surround your steps. May acceleration mark your next season. May your obedience return to you as harvest pressed down and running over. Move now as you are led. Activate your seed. Strengthen the mission. Advance the light. You were commanded to pay attention. You responded. You rose. And because you did, darkness does not win. The message is sealed.